Britain was extracting oil from Trinidad in 1908. Before most of the world even knew petroleum was a commercial product. Before the First World War. Before cars were common. Before oil became the most valuable commodity on Earth. Britain found it first in Trinidad. And for the next 54 years, they took it all. Every barrel, every refined product, every profit, shipped back to Britain while Trinidadian workers lived in segregated barracks with no running water a few meters from one of the most profitable refineries in the entire British Empire. This is the story that built modern Britain, and the one they made sure Trinidad never fully told. Trinidad was not discovered poor. The island sits on significant oil reserves. Natural gas reserves so large they have made Trinidad one of the world's top exporters of liquefied natural gas. The Pitch Lake in La Brea, a natural asphalt lake the size of a small city, attracted European commercial interest as far back as the 1500s. Sir Walter Raleigh used Trinidadian pitch to caulk his ships in 1595. The British knew what this land held long before they formally colonized it. When commercial oil drilling began in 1908 under the British company Trinidad Leaseholds Limited, the arrangement was immediately familiar. A foreign company extracts the resource. A colonial government sets the royalty rates. The rates are kept deliberately low. The profits leave the island. The people who live on the land receive almost nothing. The conditions inside the oil industry were designed to keep Trinidadian workers permanently beneath the British employees. At the Pointe-à-Pierre refinery, which would become one of the largest in the Western Hemisphere, British employees lived in a gated residential compound with gardens, lawn tennis courts, and imported furniture. Trinidadian workers lived in basic wooden barracks outside the fence. Same refinery, different worlds. Divided by a fence the British built and the colonial government legally enforced. And the wages reflected that division. British workers earned multiples of what Trinidadian workers earned for the same labor. For decades, Trinidadian workers raised their concerns through proper channels. The colonial government dismissed them every time. Then in 1937, one man decided proper channels were finished. Tubal Uriah Butler, a Grenadian-born oil worker who had settled in Trinidad and spent years watching his people exploited. In June 1937, Butler led an oil workers' uprising across the southern oil fields that shook the entire British Caribbean. Workers walked off the job. Fields stopped producing. The colonial government panicked. Butler was arrested and charged with sedition. The British response was to send an armed police who killed workers in the streets of Fyzabad. They killed workers for going on strike, for demanding fair wages from the industry extracting their nation's oil. Butler was imprisoned. But the uprising forced the British to establish the Moyne Commission, an investigation into Caribbean labor conditions that confirmed exactly what the workers had been saying for decades. The Commission's findings were so damaging that Britain suppressed the full report until 1945, refusing to release it publicly during the war because they feared it would weaken colonial loyalty. They buried the evidence of their own crimes for 8 years. When Trinidad and Tobago gained independence in 1962 under its first Prime Minister Eric Williams, the expectation was that the oil wealth would finally stay home. Eric Williams was not just a politician. He was one of the most brilliant historians the Caribbean ever produced. His landmark book Capitalism and Slavery, written in 1944, documented precisely how British colonial wealth was built on slavery and resource extraction. He knew exactly what had been taken, and he spent his career trying to take it back. By 1974, Trinidad had nationalized significant portions of its oil industry, creating what would eventually become Petrotrin. The oil boom of the 1970s finally delivered on the promise of independence. New schools, new hospitals, infrastructure, a standard of living that briefly made Trinidad one of the most prosperous nations in the Caribbean. But here is where the second betrayal began. Not from Britain this time, from within. As oil revenues flowed into Trinidad through the 1970s and 1980s, successive governments, under both the PNM and UNC, oversaw Petrotrin with a level of opacity that should have alarmed every Trinidadian. Contracts were awarded to politically connected companies with minimal public tender. Operational costs ballooned year after year while production declined. Maintenance was deferred. Infrastructure aged. Debts accumulated. Patrick Manning, Prime Minister from 1991 to 1995 and again from 2002 to 2010, oversaw periods of significant oil revenue with limited accountability for how those funds were allocated across the state energy sector. Under his watch, the gap between what Trinidad earned from its resources and what ordinary Trinidadians received in public services continued to widen. By 2018, Petrotrin was carrying over $5 billion in debt. $5 billion of debt in a state oil company that had been extracting and refining oil since 1908. 110 years of oil revenue, and the company built to manage it was bankrupt. In 2018, Prime Minister Keith Rowley announced the closure of the Petrotrin refinery. Over 5,000 workers lost their jobs. Their pensions, funds they had contributed to for entire careers, were thrown into uncertainty overnight. The same refinery Uriah Butler had gone to prison fighting for the right to work and fairly. Closed, not by Britain, by the government of Trinidad and Tobago itself. Today, Trinidad's natural gas, exported as liquefied natural gas through Atlantic LNG, generates billions in revenue. The majority of that infrastructure is operated through agreements with foreign energy companies. BP, Shell, ExxonMobil, the same names that were on the gates of Colonial oil facilities 100 years ago, are still collecting from Trinidadian resources today. The faces in the government building have changed. The direction of the wealth has not changed nearly enough. This is what out of deep research we have uncovered for you today. Documents, historical records, commission reports buried for decades, financial filings that were never meant to reach the public. The Odd Archive is the #1 factual history page on the internet right now. Not speculation, not opinion, evidence. And just like we called out Marcos in the Philippines, just like we named the politicians who looted Nigeria, just like we exposed the men behind Operation Ajax in Iran, we will keep naming names wherever the evidence points. Do you want us to continue calling out corrupt politicians and officials by name in every future video? Comment yes below if you are ready for that. We have already exposed Nigeria, Gaddafi, Jamaica, India, Guyana, Canada, Iran, the Philippines, and Venezuela. Every story follows the same architecture. Find the resource, control who benefits, extract the wealth, suppress the evidence, and when challenged, use the legal system, the military, or the economic system to silence whoever is in the way. Trinidad is just the latest chapter, and we are choosing the next country from your comments. Drop your country below. Tell us where you are watching from. Tell us which nation's buried history you want us to expose next. We build every video for this community. Your comment decides what comes next. Share this video right now. Someone in your life thinks Britain was a generous empire. Show them Fyzabad 1937. Show them the fence at Pointe-à-Pierre. Show them the $5 billion debt of a company that extracted oil for 110 years. One share puts this in front of thousands of people who have never connected Britain's industrial revolution to what was taken from this island. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, search official The Odd Archive, and turn on notifications. Follow this page. Share this video. Comment your country. Because the next story we are dropping, based on what you tell us, involves a government that has been hiding documents for longer than most countries have been independent. And we found them.